Thank you for pen and paper. So you've been a producer on the project from the start?
Yep, and Whitney here is our art director. So we've got two of the people who've been involved in the project right from the beginning.
That's awesome.
So what was the journey from start to finish? I know you guys started as a Kickstarter back in 2015, was when it was first kind of teased?
Yep, so it's basically the beginning of We Happy Few started, as most things do, with the end of Contrast, our first game. And what we did was say, okay, well, what did we do well in Contrast? What did we like about the project? We really loved the atmosphere and story. We felt like we'd nailed the feeling of what we wanted people to be, experiencing throughout the game. And we wanted to build on that and try experimenting with a couple of other things. So we started with in early 2014. We went through and basically spent about a year prototyping different systems, building the world, concepting, creating the art direction and the feeling of the world, the basic building blocks of the story, and all of the various gameplay pillars that we wanted. And then we took a really different route that a lot of smaller teams do, which proved to be quite a story for us over the next 3.5 years. So we went to PAX East, we showed a demo, we revealed at PAX East with basically a functioning prototype. It was not what it was. We were maybe 10 people at the time, I think. Maybe?
Yeah, it was small. Yeah.
So we went there, and the feedback from everybody was really interesting. So we had this procedural city where the main gameplay mechanic was social stealth, where the idea was you have to conform, you have to blend in, you have to figure out what the rules were. We did a few things that a lot of other games just don't do. So, for example, if you run in the city, they'll be like, why are you running? You're clearly a downer. Why are you skulking in the corner? You're clearly up to no good, so they'd come and beat you up. And so that was quite a lot of fun, and people really enjoyed that, but it seemed to us that they responded extremely well to the story and the sort of the concept of the world itself. And that was really interesting. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and we thought, okay, well, it seems like we might really have something here, so we wanted to test that out. So we went to Kickstarter in mid-2015, and Kickstarter was quite successful. It was really interesting because we said, okay, well, you guys can play and help us build the game. And the goal at the time was lofty and totally impossible, but I didn't know that back then. But the idea was that we'd have monthly updates, and we'd just say, hey, this is what we're building, give us feedback. So they gave us lots of feedback right after the Kickstarter on various mechanics, the early lore, early joy prototypes and concepts. And that went really well for a period of about a year, and we thought, okay, well, this is good. Let's go out on early access. We're part of the Microsoft 2016 briefing, which was the first time people saw the introduction to the game. It was the first real story moment that anyone had ever experienced. It was the great and famous rat pinata moment.
Yep.
And everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so excited. It's going to be the next BioShock. And we're like, yep, still 15 people. Not BioShock. But we launched on early access, and the feedback we continually got was, hey, this procedural world's cool, the survival elements, maybe not my favorite thing, but they're okay, the gameplay's interesting, but what we care about is the story. Mm-hmm. And basically we realized that expectations on the project were astronomical by then. So thanks Microsoft for that. So what we decided to do was rebuild and build a team. So basically we grew after early access from 15 to 40 people.
Wow.
Along with contractors. We refinanced the project. We took all of our early access money, put it back into the project, and sought external finance partners. Before we committed to all of this, we met with Gearbox Publishing, who were just super enthusiastic about the project, and it's really because of their support and our ability to sort of find financing that we were able to say, okay, you know what, we're going to build the game you guys want. We're going to try and build something that is almost as big as something like BioShock. And here we are.
I read recently about the second playable character. You can talk about the decision-making process behind choosing to add a second character. Maybe tell us a little bit about that second character.
So, in fact, we have 3.
Okay. Oh, cool.
And from relatively early on in the game, we realized we want to have different characters. And what we want to do is try and portray some of the same events from different perspectives. So the idea is that throughout the story, you have your 3 playable characters, Arthur, Sally, and Ollie. And as each one of them, you'll experience certain similar events. So it may be that you see different sides of a conversation between 2 of those characters. Maybe you'll experience side quests that you go through and the story changes between each one. And obviously we have the procedural world, which is a bit of a lofty idea that nobody experiences the world in the same way. Your experience of LA is totally and fundamentally different to mine.
It has to do with the joy mechanic, tampering with people's memories too, and then just that idea that everyone has a different perspective of how.
Did they ever meet these characters? These 3 people?
You will find out, but yes, you may have seen it. You may have seen it actually at the end of the demo, where Arthur meets Ollie, the 3rd character. And Ollie tries to beat him up, actually. That's the first thing he does. But Ollie's a very confused, slightly mad person, so complications ensue, as Alex would say, our narrative director.
Did the crowdsourcing help or hurt you guys as far as taking so much input? Did it slow it down? Did it speed it up? Did you find ways to make games that you never thought possible before? What process? I've really not heard of that being integrated so deeply into a game.
So open development's a really interesting approach. There's a lot of advantages that it gives, and some disadvantages as well. The advantages, I think, for us were really that we got constant feedback on early gameplay mechanics, and that was really good because we were like, okay, well, we don't have to wait, we don't have to hide in secrecy for a long time and think, gosh, are people going to enjoy it? Are people going to like it? Are we going to bet really big and think, oh no, we've gone horribly wrong?
Yeah.
Instead, we got that constant, hey, you're moving in the right direction all the way along. And that, we did actually change our direction at certain points. Obviously, we had planned a story from the start, but the game that you see today is only possible through open development and crowdsourced information and funding, whether that's through Kickstarter or early access. There's the feedback. The encouragement is really important as well. We've had some fans that have been with us for 3.5 years now. I think we've certainly tested their patience a little bit, but along the way, them just showing up at shows, saying, hi, how are you guys doing? I can't believe the change in the game since the last time I've seen it. That constant reinforcement is something that most development teams never get a chance to experience until the end, and it's either a big success or it's a crushing failure. But we've had this sort of, cheerleading group that's just here to help us and give us feedback all the way along, and that's really incredible and very motivating for our team.
Yeah, and the team puts out their weekly updates too, and so it really feels like there's quite a personal relationship to that community, and to get to meet people and to go to PAX and there's one person who, is a very passionate fan and friend, and he, painted a picture for us, and I mean, for having to have the team, to have people come up to you like that is extremely, it means that you were making something for people. It's pretty, I mean, it's obvious, but you know, that kind of face-to-face sort of relationship, because it also builds over time, and for them to be part of the process is different than just, okay, here's this big thing that we did for them and you can enjoy this how you like, but it's the relationship in itself builds over time too, if that makes sense.
I'm curious, as you play the game, how much do you learn about the lore and the history of this alternate universe?
Everything.
Perfect.
Yeah, basically when we have everyone is involved in the team in terms of giving feedback and input and kind of cultivating the universe, and the universe definitely has collective facets from almost everyone on the team. But we have Alex, who is the narrative director, and me, and then design director, and we have and Sam, and there's a bunch of people who we every decision goes through all the different departments to make sure it kind of supports everything. So there's rarely any object in the game that doesn't reflect the history to some extent or have like a purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So
Incredible.
And what made you guys pick the 1960s for this kind of universe?
because it's like it's a decade that symbolizes the epitome of happiness and denial of history, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in England. So it's kind of the best setting to explore this idea of people rejecting their history and choosing to be kind of obliviously optimistic about the future. Yeah.
And then did you have, like, what was the process of doing research to make sure that it, like, fit the same time, had those differences because it is an alternate history?
Well, we had like the foundation concept of knowing that England in the 60s would be like a nice kind of, that would kind of work for the high level ideas we wanted to explore, and then because we're doing an alternate history, we can change and tweak and bend. I mean, it is not a real place, so I mean it's real based on this, but so we can pull like symbolism and references from the setting to amplify kind of the symbolism and everything, but then we created, like Alex wrote the lore and the backstory and stuff, so that gives us the flexibility to be creative.
How does it feel to have this finally, like, coming out as a finished project, I guess, after working on it for so long?
I'm scared. Ask me when it's actually finished.
Yeah.
In a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but it's also
it's I think one thing that sort of the public doesn't really understand, well, they'll say they understand, but they don't really understand, it's been 4.5 years of our lives. And you think about that, we've had like 6 kids born across that time. We've had people come and go from the studio. I've grown a much bigger beard. It's not just a job. It's a baby you build with 40 people. It's an experience that's quite unlike anything else, except maybe film, I guess. But even then, film people sort of come in and out. But we're just a big team that has built together, and it's at the end you're left with you've got your satisfaction, you're happy, and you're kind of keen to move on to other things. But there's also sometimes, like I'll have withdrawal and a bit of loss because
it's your life for so long.
It's like you're not losing a friend, but he's sort of going up on the shelf now.
Yeah, you know? And it's really a collective collaboration in our studio. So I mean, it's everyone, like I said, has definitely a piece of themselves in the game for sure.
That was actually one of my questions, was there anything specific that either of you or someone fought for? Just like, can you recall something that you wanted in the game that we can find to just identify a piece of both of you? It's like, I want that to be green. I just really fought hard, like tooth and nail, like would not stop. Because I can totally...
it's like every day. No, in a friendly way.
Yeah, I totally get that, yeah.
But I mean, we're always a lot of times, like, I'll think of something that I think will be really cool and atmospheric and really just, like, it will kind of help the general, like, vibe of the world, but then it's like, because Alex is he's written such a rich, deep, specific story, it's like it has to go through the check boxes of, like, fulfilling all of his requirements on, like, why would the society have built that at that period? Why would they have used that expression on the statue's face? Like, why would, so there's a lot of friendly back and forth to kind of fulfill both, like, to make the world rich and interesting. And I mean, for me, selfish, like, just a silly example would be like statues. Like, statues are so impactful when you walk around the world and you see this big statue that can be really symbolic and really interesting, but because it's so symbolic, it has to go through Alex's approval.
From my perspective, my role's the producer role. We think is it's kind of better to divorce your opinions a little bit. It's always good to give them, but I don't push very hard for things that I particularly want to see. I'm a bit more Machiavellian in that encourage discussion and see if we can figure out the right thing. With one exception,
The story.
the collectibles.
The collectibles.
Yeah.
And
So
that was like,
the one exception I pushed hard for.
and it was amazing. Did you get pushed back? I guess because it was so late in the production.
Yeah.
Dude, it's launching tomorrow.
Yeah, basically that was, but it was so worth it. It was.
To explain what that is, we had a little while ago. Alex wrote like a little flashbacky thing, and it was just an audio excerpt, just Arthur talking to Percy, his brother, and I sort of listened to it and I thought, it's going to be really cheap and easy for us to build these and sort of enrich the story of each of these characters, allow you to see more inside their head in more controlled ways. So I said, Alex, what do you think about writing 40 of them? And so there's 40 across the game ish for each character. And then we put them in the game, and we had a testing session where basically people played and they said, wow, I just really learned so much more through these collectibles. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Now we need visuals. And so I thought I was being really clever, and I thought, okay, well, there'll be time for the artists at the end of the project to be able to create these specific scenes and have accompanying flashback video associated with it. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
It really turned out really nicely.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's all everyone else's talent, but
They just
I
barely
did
had
push for
time.
it. Yeah, they just
It's basically
barely-
made little sets, like really, so when you hear the narrative in the flashback, you have a visual symbolic representation you can look at to emphasize it. And also, before you could just run around the world and you were hearing it, and it was kind of a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized people get a lot out of hearing it. So it's really cool how much people are interested in the narrative specifically, though. People, they're picking up everything, and that's really motivating for us to know that.
Is there anything else you'd want people who are about to play this for the first time to know about the game, the story, the process, anything special you want to leave for our readers?
I think I think the game's not what you think it's going to be. And I think it's important for people to go in without expectations. So don't expect Bioshock. Don't go in thinking, hey, what's the great big twist at the end of the game? That's not what you should be thinking about when you play We Happy Few. What you should be thinking about is there's this world and it's very unusual. And how would you respond to it? So the idea with the characters, it's all about saying, how did they respond in their situations to what's going on? How do they deal with it? How do they think about it? So I'd say, don't go in with any real expectations. Just
We don't really fit into a genre anymore, like one specific genre. I think that people
really
can
hard
connect to,
explain.
Yeah, I think this is like a psychological thriller mixed with a video game mixed with. It's all of my favorite things wrapped into a video game. I'm so happy for you guys.
Thanks.
Oh well, that's it for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys.